We protect what we have in Latin America right now. How can we protect the country? How can we protect Venezuela from the imperialistic ideas of North America?
Thank you.
Thank you, and glad you're all here. Please, a request for all of you. Please, a request from all of you. Do not respond to provocations by white racists or anybody else. We represent peace. We represent the right side. We do not represent violence or war. So let's remember that and don't react to white supremacists and other people. About 30% of Venezuelans are Chavistas to the bone, and they will continue to be so. They voted in Maduro, and they will fight if anyone tries to stop that. And there's a good reason for that, and let me please explain. I live next to a bad slum where houses are made of garbage, and when it rained on the people in that slum, whether they were inside the garbage houses or not. There was high infant mortality there. One of my good friends that I played with lived in a stall that was converted from a colonial house's stall for horses. It was the apartment of his family. He lived there even though his mother worked and had a salary. Well, when Chavez was elected president, he said, if we want to eliminate poverty, we must give power to the poor. Not the way it used to be, charity to the poor, but power to the poor. And the way he did that was to organize the whole country into communal councils and to have a ministry that actually listened to those communal councils. And guess what it is that the communal councils, which made up the whole population, guess what it is they wanted? They wanted three things. The three things that previous governments did not want to answer to. The first one was housing. People didn't want to live in garbage-made houses and in stalls like my friend, stalls that used to be intended for one horse. They didn't want to live like that, so they asked for housing. And the Bolivarian Revolution has built more than 1.5 million houses at very affordable prices. In fact, almost free to the poorest of the poor. What was the second thing the people wanted? They wanted access to good medicine. And you know what? The medical doctors that graduated from universities, very good ones in Venezuela, they didn't go into the slums. Why? Because those slums were dangerous for them. They wouldn't dare go there, let alone live there. So what Chavez did was to begin a different kind of trade internationally. He traded oil that Cuba needed for doctors that Cuba could provide. And those medical doctors in a system called Barrio Adentro went into the slums and actually lived with the people there. And they were loved by the people there. And they gave them the medical care that before they didn't receive. Even though, and I remember that at my time, medical attention in hospitals was free, but you had to get there in order to receive that medical attention. And ambulances were not free. And there were a lot of places that were inaccessible to any kind of vehicle in the slums. So the medical attention then was the second thing that the people wanted. And the third thing that they wanted, third priority, they wanted many things, but the third priority was access to a really good education, not a broken down school where nothing worked and where the teachers were afraid to teach, but real schools where you learned something, where you had time to do that. where you had all the way, you could go all the way to the top of the university without any money. And Venezuela became a big school. It became a school and a university. More people enrolled than anywhere else in Latin America. Now the differences that existed before between living in stalls of a horse or in houses made of garbage and the rich areas of Caracas and of other big cities, that was something that was perpetuated no matter what kind of government was there. And the reason was this: the rich people and the middle class people felt, well, the ones that are poor like that and live in those conditions, that's terrible, but it's their own fault. And that's why they're living that way. And that's why they never went there, they don't understand it. And the people that went into government and the people that are opposed to Chavismo don't understand it because they haven't ever seen, they've never been in those places. They don't know what it's like to live like that. And so when Chavez said, give power to the poor, give power to those people that were living under those conditions, making them powerful, giving them what they felt were the priorities, the middle and upper classes were horrified. What is it you're doing, giving power to those people who are deservedly poor, who don't know what to do, who are uneducated, who are violent? And they hated them. And that is why we have such a polarized society in Venezuela today. And you know what? The Americans that owned Venezuela before, and to whom we were a colony, an economic colony and a colony in many ways, because of the situation we had for over 100 years, we became more and more dependent on oil. And the big problem with Chavez's reforms was that they depended on the export of oil to bring back all of the income from the United States in order to buy American products that became our infrastructure. Our entire infrastructure, including the oil-producing infrastructure, is made in the USA. So when the oil prices crashed, there was an explosion socially in the country. And when the price of oil started to go back up again, Trump imposed sanctions. And those sanctions and embargo meant that we could not buy any of the things that were needed to maintain, to repair, and to invest in that infrastructure made in the USA, including the infrastructure to produce oil. The Americans also isolated Venezuela from the entire financial world, so we can't get loans to do anything. And then they blame us for that. And the intent of those sanctions and embargo is to make us starve into submission to them. It's not to help us, it's to force us to accept what used to be and is unacceptable. So, what is the solution? The solution is not elections right now. We're too polarized. There's no understanding. We hate each other. I don't want Venezuelans to be killing each other. I don't hate the people that hate me. We don't want that in Venezuela. We need, before we have elections, before we make decisions, we have to dialogue. We have to sit in peace, face each other, and decide that we're going to live together in peace. And that will not happen as long as the opposition and Mr. Guaido, the self-appointed president, that will not happen as long as he knows that the United States tells him, no, don't do that, and we will support you to go back to the old system, where the poor will be poor because they're inferior, and you will be rich and govern because you know better, and we will help you to do that with all the power we have. And that is why the alternative to the dialogue, the alternative to placing each other over the table and saying we have to live together, the alternative is war. And right now they're trying to provoke one at the borders by sending in people, by getting people in trouble, by provoking the military. And we've got to stop that. And those people up there are all for that. They say they're not for a military invasion, but they're for Guaido, who's calling for a military invasion. And they're big friends with the little brother of the United States that wants an invasion. And explicitly they've said it's because we want Venezuelan oil for us, not for the Venezuelan people. So I say, dialogue yes, war no, hands off Venezuela!
Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Hands off